30, Wyoming's investment in veterans' mental health. Senator Pappas, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. So this bill was the work of your interim committee, Joint Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs Committee. And then it was heard in committee last week. And there wasn't, if you look at the original bill, I'm assuming you have copies of the bill in front of you. If you look at the original bill, from page about 7 on, you can see there was law, or there was a section in here, section 2, that deals with where the money's coming from. And if you look on page 15, so the change is on line 11 through 17 and 15. Of this general fund appropriation, $250,000 shall be used for the Wyoming's for the Wyoming Veterans Loan Repayment Program established under that section shown. This appropriation shall not be transferred or expended for any other purposes. It is intent of the legislature in this appropriation to be included in the standard budget request for the University of Wyoming and immediately succeeding the fiscal biennium. So basically, this is really is coming out of their block grant, and if they don't even use the funds, they can't use the funds for any other reason. And then if you look on page 6, line 5, repayment of the loans and interest thereupon shall be credited to the school foundation program account. So even the repayment is taken out of their block grant, and the repayment is not going back to them, it's going to the school foundation program. So what the committee did is they struck all of section 2. And so it left this effort with no appropriation. And so discussing it with LSO, they said, well, it's easy, take it to the appropriations and have them insert an appropriation. So the intent to bring this bill to you is if we want this program, and let me explain the program just real quick. It's a program that allows people working in mental health or counseling or one of those allied fields to be able to get their master's or doctorate degree. And then upon graduation, if they get that degree and they practice in Wyoming and 25% of their time is to veterans, then Wyoming will repay their loan, okay? It's trying to get those professionals in Wyoming to deal with our veterans. So that's all it is. We need an appropriation. I felt it was, and the committee felt it wasn't appropriate to take it out of the university's block grant, because frankly, it's not a university requested program. Although they agree, they like the program, but we keep whittling away at their block grant. We're asking for an appropriation out of the general fund to fund this program. It's $250,000.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Pappas, thank you for that. I just want to make sure I'm tracking it all. So I'll ask a series of questions, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Yes.
So this program, which everyone agrees is a great program, is housed at the university, but really financially isn't a part of the university, correct?
Correct.
And that since the money where we talked about, and when you talked on page 6 on the deleted line about coming from the university and then, or being paid to the university, but then getting paid back to the school foundation account, that was where we kind of ran into the rub from the university standpoint. It was money that was literally just chipping them out and not coming back to them, correct?
Well, that's the second part of the equation. First part of the equation is you're just taking it out of their block grant.
Right.
Initially. Second of all, when we do get the loan repayment, it's not going back to them.
Okay, third question. So then if we like this program, and everyone seems to, and it seems to be helping veterans, people that need it the most, what we do is we just appropriate $250,000 from the general fund. The program goes on at the university, but really isn't a part of the university. And the folks that need help get the help. The university where the program is housed, it's just housed there. Everything else stays pretty much status quo, correct?
That's fine, and the repayment could then stay, if you want, at the school foundation program or back to the general fund, either way.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Senator Pappas? Thank you, Senator, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, did you have one? Senator Larson.
So, Senator Pappas, so your request is to put on page 15, line 15, put that back in? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know the actual language, Senator, but just requesting an appropriation. Probably a new section 2 to be inserted. We can get with LSO to draft the language, but just an appropriation of $250,000 to fund the program.
Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. In that paragraph, it states that this would be a continual appropriation. Is that what I've read in that paragraph?
That's what it stated, and it also stated that it can't be used for any other purposes, which is fine, as long as it doesn't come out of UW's block grant. Because if we appropriate $250,000 and they don't use it, so you're taking out of the block grant, they don't use it, now they can't use it for something else in the block grant.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Larson.
Thank you. Do you have a problem if we use that paragraph? I would like to delete the last sentence where it says it is the intent of the legislature that this appropriation be included in the standard budget request for the UW for the immediately succeeding fiscal biennium. I'm not sure if I want another appropriation.
If you delete that, you're going to see it every year, correct?
Yes.
That's
No, if you delete that, I don't think we'll see it every year.
Senator Grew.
if you leave it in there, it's going to be in the standard budget, and you won't see it again.
Right.
So if you delete it, you're going to see it next year.
Right.
I want to see it.
So
It's up
I
to
think
you.
correct me, but I think what the good senator's saying is that we necessarily want to appropriate this year out of general fund, and then we want to see it next year. So this is, since it's a supplemental budget, we'd like to, if we're so disposed to approve it, then come back next year and then talk about it in general terms as maybe an ongoing or however we're going to do it, but move forward that way. I think that's your question.
Mr. Chairman, the only caution I would have, if we do it for, this is typically a 3-year program, a master's or a PhD. And so if you cut out the funding before a student got through the program, I don't know how that would work. You would at least want to tie in anybody who enrolled under the program or somehow, I don't actually know if they enroll. Yeah, they would have to enroll in it because it's a program they would start in. Once they start, I think you have to let them finish, whether it's, do you get my gist? And Mr. Chairman, perhaps
Yes.
the university could shed some light as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Senator Pappas, thank you. Mike, anyone want to?
Mr. Chairman, Mike Smith with the university. Really don't have a ton to offer directly, but happy to answer questions. I think the chairman and sponsor, well, not the sponsor, it was a committee bill, but explained our dilemma a little bit. But happy to try to describe how we administer similar programs for nursing, for other things. I'm happy to try to shed some light on it.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Senator Guru.
Sorry, Mike, thanks for coming out. So I want to ask this, but I don't, but I will anyway. Some of those questions I could ask bring more questions than not. So I understand the university's position. Funds a program out of its block grant, and then the money, when it gets repaid back, goes somewhere else, and they're not wild about that. But I was under the impression that you wanted to remove the program altogether. The university wanted to remove the program altogether. But would it be your choice then to say, in a perfect world, that that money would get repaid to the university's block grant?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, I wouldn't, we are not opposed to the program at all. We recognize it's an incredibly important problem that everyone's looking for ways to increase the number of folks in mental health fields, and particularly focused on veterans, and that there's been some studies and some testimony that Veterans to Veterans has some particular value when providing these services. So I would never want to say that we're opposed to that, and we would stand ready to do it. To administer the program, which is basically, hey, if you are a veteran, doesn't matter if you're a resident or not, if you're a veteran and you want to get your master's in counseling, for instance, then we're gonna give you that cost of attendance after you use all your other federal help that you might get, and the state's gonna pay that. And then you're not going to be on the hook to pay us back if you spend that 25% of your time practicing with veterans here in the state. Great, and we can do that. Really, our concern was just the way, in the end, the bill as originally designed would have caused us to take that money directly off the top of our block grant, but then there was no money of either coming back, or let's say there was only one student that qualified and there was other money left over, we would have had to just take that $250 and then send whatever was left on down the road to the school foundation or other funds, and suddenly it felt like a cut. Even though it wasn't a huge amount, it just didn't seem like the way to go about. The other programs we have are general fund dollars, and we administer the program on behalf of the state.
Okay, other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to give testimony? General, good to have you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Chairman Salazar, members of the committee, I'm Brigadier General Michelle Mulberry. I'm the Director of Joint Staff for the Wyoming Military Department. I'd just like to offer that we worked with the committee during the interim, and we think this is a valuable program for veterans. And we're just happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Senator Guru.
General, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. How many folks are in the, how many folks do you see in the program now? What are you looking at as far as, as it stands now and as you look forward, I guess would be my question. And it looks like you're going to phone a friend.
I am going to phone a friend, yes.
All right.
Colonel, good to have you.
Chairman Salazar, through to Senator Guru. I'm sorry, I haven't said your name yet. My apologies. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Karen Hinkle. I'm the Senior Legal Counsel for the Wyoming Military Department. In answer to your question, the best estimate we have is over the past 5 years, there were approximately, and let me just refer to the fiscal note to make sure I get this correct. Approximately 13 students may have been eligible for the program, so I think that it's a pretty small number. I would estimate that if it were approximately 5 students that were out-of-state residents, that would be your $250,000 appropriation that was initially recommended.
Okay, other questions? No other questions? Thank you both for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to testify? Yes. Mr. Winnie. How are you, sir?
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winning, Sublette County, veteran of 30 years active duty in the Navy, in the submarine force. In sessions like this, there is always a few bills, perhaps a very few bills, that ought to be funded or fully funded. And I think this is one of those. And here's why. Veterans is a transition from active duty to the civilian world, and they typically go into it right out of high school. I certainly did. And they go into a culture that's fundamentally different than the civilian world. And in my observation, it's just a lot more difficult to work with. It's dishonest in a lot of ways. And so you end up with veterans that in that transition, you end up with a continuum. Some will turn that quandary they face inward, and they become your suicides or your alcohol and drug problems. And some turn it outward, and they become, perhaps even in the criminal world, and therefore in front of the judiciary. And so how do you intercept that? And that's what I view this as an element of. I'm familiar with the Veteran to Veteran program. I've attended some of their sessions. So this kind of thing, providing more mental health professionals that could get into that quandary. I mean, in my case, why didn't I succumb to something like that? Well, I served in the Washington, D.C. area 3 different times, and I saw that element of the civilian world up close, and so I understand it. That doesn't mean I haven't faced some jaw-dropping things along the way. So I support the bill. I think it's one of those few bills that you all ought to fund. And subject to your questions, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No questions? Thank you. Okay, any other testimony? Any other testimony? I'll close testimony. What is the pleasure of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I'm honored for this bill.
Okay,
I
we-
wish I'd have had Mr. Winnie recorded. That was excellent. And for the same reasons that Mr. Winnie outlined, really, this is important. We take care of our veterans that come transitioning.
Okay, is there a second? Second? Any amendments? Senator Guru.
I think to the good, Mr. Chairman, thank you. To the good Senator, I think he articulated very well, at least my position as well, as far as the what. Now, the question is the how, and that's where we're kind of running into a bit of a sticky wicket. And I understand my good senator's friends, I got friends for this and friends against it. I always stand with my friends, as our Senator Coe always used to say. The trick is, how can we get this funded and keep everyone else in line? I mean, it just seems odd to me that this comes out of the university and then gets paid back to the school foundation fund. That just seems not correct. And I talked to the good, or the chairman on this bill, and
So let's do.
boy, I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's
Yeah,
supposed to
well,
be.
Just go back to the general.
Just a minute. Senator Larson and then Senator Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I know we're in the middle of discussion and maybe amendments, but I really don't know if there's funding in this bill with the amendment that may be coming. Standing committee amendment.
Is there one?
And if they could be explained, that would be good.
Okay, Senator Smith, and then we'll go to General.
I'm under the impression that it's coming out of the general fund. So we have to go back to the general fund. And that takes care, in my mind, takes care of it.
Senator Guru.
I believe it can. I believe it can come out of the general fund and go back to the general fund. The question is at $250,000, but from what I heard in testimony, it really needs to be a 3-year deal, because we're going to ask people to get in a program, and then we're going to tell them, well, we don't know if the funding's going to be there on year 2. And I think that would have a, how do we say, chilling effect on enrollment?
Senator Pappas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My suggestion to the committee on the amendment would be not so much a drafted amendment, let LSO draft the language, but a conceptual amendment that you will appropriate $250,000 out of the general fund, and that it return to the general fund on repayment, and that it actually does continue on as a
Biannualized.
yes.
A biannualized figure, so it recurs.
Senator Larson?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I'd rather the payments that come back go to this fund, and we do a one-time for now.
One time as in 1 year or 3 years?
One-time fund that can be used for 3 years, but only do 250 right now.
Mr.
Senator
Chairman, I
Pappas?
don't know that you want to create another bucket. I don't know you want to create another fund, do you? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, if we can't figure this out, but it's the committee's feeling that this needs to be funded, then we're going to have to entertain an amendment on the floor.
Let's see if we can figure it out.
So unless we can thread the needle here, we're going to do it on the floor. Senator Guru.
Okay, at this time, I'd move that we fund the $250,000 as suggested by the chairman of Transportation Committee, and then we biennialize that number. So that means that my intent, it's a conceptual amendment, but the concept is that we'll fund it for 3 years. But then what we'll do is, between now and the time we get to the floor, is try to work with the chair and make sure that we have, if there's a better concept to get it done, we'll work on getting it done, understanding we may not have full unanimous support at this point, or maybe not even pass, but
So is that an amendment?
that's an motion.
Okay, is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, Mr.
Senator-
Chairman, for Senator Larson's comfort, might I say that you could put a sunset date on the whole thing, maybe 4 years out, so you can get through a 3-year cycle and then see how it's going. Would that might be more comfortable for you.
Senator Larson?
Friendly, I'd do it.
Senator Larson?
I don't know. Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure.
Wait.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Senator
to
Larson.
talk about the amendment still. I am very concerned that we're going to do 250 this year, 250 next year, 250 the next year, and I'm not sure if I can go for that. So I would like to see if we can't find a middle ground.
Mr. Chair, well, you're concerned about 3 years. What about a 2-year sunset, Mr. Larson?
Senator Larson?
I'm fine with the sunset. I'm not sure if 2 would work for them. I'm just concerned that we're going to make a payment 3 times every year.
Again, the other option is that we take the time to draft an amendment and present it on the floor. That's the other option. So, but we have a motion and we have a second.
Question.
Senator Guru, will you restate your amendment again?
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd love to fund this program for $250,000 a year, biennialize it, but sunset it after 3 years. That's my motion.
Okay. Senator
Mr.
Smith?
Chair, I second that again.
And
Okay,
if I can just discuss, what I'm trying to do, I know I may not get my friend's vote on this one, but what I'm trying to do is live to the spirit of what he's asking, is that this not become just an automatic, recurring, over and over an expense. And what I'd be looking for from my friend, the general, and team, is that then when we get into the next budget cycle, we hear what's happening, we get full reports, we see if this program's doing, so that way, when it comes to the sunset, that we can say this program's working, it's effective, it's produced X, And then maybe my good friend, the senator, might get a little more comfortable. And I agree with him 100%, by the way.
Okay, everyone understand? Senator Larson?
Mr. Chairman, is there a sunset on this? I don't think I heard one. You did do it.
I did do 3.
So we have a 3-year, we have a sunset on this, appropriating 250. And any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Carried. Okay. Now, we're back on the bill. Back on the bill. Any
No
other
further
dis-
amendments.
Okay. Any other discussion? If none, roll call.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote for Senate File 0030, do pass as amended. Senator Driscoll is excused and has voted aye. Senator Garou.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
Senator Smith.
Aye.
And Chairman Salzar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes, do pass amended.
Thank you. And then Senator Gru, you'll take this.
I'll try.
Okay. Thank you. The next, thank you, General. The next is Senate File 88, 2025, large project funding. And yes, Senator Gru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring you Senate File 88, and the reason why I'm bringing it to you and not Director Budd, who is in charge of this program and works so tirelessly for it, is he's out of town today. And basically, this is an old friend. This is, if you've got the bill with you in hand, it just talks about the large project fund for the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Funding Act. And that act has been around for quite a while, and it has literally hundreds of millions of dollars that we spent, that is inviolate, that's in our investment vehicles. And this money is, the interest from this money is appropriated for the projects that are listed. And of course, I brought a list, but then I think I left it upstairs. But the projects, as you walk through the bill, whether on page 2, the Thunder Basin Habitat 3 project, or in addition to the, look, I'm gonna make sure I got them. I'm gonna make sure that I get them all in here. Thunder Basin. Beggs Valley Headwaters project. That would be on page 415. The Kemmer Highway Migration Project on page 6, line 9. And through the Wind River Canyon Cheatgrass Project on page 8, line 4, going down, then on to page 9, the Shirley Basin Habitat Project. And I had them all written down. Keep going. Page 11, the NEWIGWG Cheatgrass Project, and that encompasses Sheridan, Johnson, Campbell, and Crook counties in the Cheatgrass Project. The Western Wyoming Cheatgrass Project, which is in Teton County, and I believe part of Lincoln County as well. That is on page 13. On to the Upper Green River Project on page 15, Upper Green Fencing Project 2, which is the second half of that project, on page 15, line 14. And then the Wapiti Habitat Restoration Project on page 17, line 8. And the Natrona Core Cheatgrass Project on page 19. And that is on line 6, going down from there. As you look through all those projects, remembering once again, members of the committee, all these projects are fully vetted by the commission, which is appointed by the governor, who goes through them. Then those of us on the committee, which is a joint committee of the House and Senate, look at all the different projects that the commission brings to us, and then they've gone through on that. So the key takeaways: you've got a commission, you've got legislative oversight, you're spending investment dollars, so not tax dollars, that you're spending earnings on investment dollars that have been put in a permanent fund by the legislature. And the total for this year's trust spending is 16.49.588, I believe.
Yep.
Is the total expense. Then into FY '26, $1,146,000. I've asked around, and we talked to the committee a little bit about this offline. Like I say, Bob's not here today to walk through these and do them true justice, but this has been a program that's been around for a long time, and at this point, I would ask if they're, send it back to you for any comments from the floor, but I'm going to be looking to move to approve this and send it to the floor.
So, anyone, Senator Larson?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to have a question for Senator Guru. It looks to me like the intent is to spend 16.4 million and then spend 1.1 million. So are they out of funds for fiscal year 26, or do you know? But I would like that answered.
Senator Guru?
No, that to get the projects to their completion will take through that time. There's a couple of these that are larger projects. I believe there's one that's like $1.8 million just on its own. And so I think that's the only thing. It's about when the expenses will come in. One thing about Director Budd and the commission itself, as a part of the commission, or part of the committee, I know this, that they give us updated progress reports as they go through, and then in a final when the project closes. And that's usually just a de minimis amount of money at the end of each project that kind of go out and take that through. And now Mr. Hibbard's going to come up and counteract everything I've said.
Senator
Just because
Larson?
he likes to do that.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I'll wait and listen to the rest, but I do have another comment.
Okay. Mr.
Mr.
Hibbard?
Chairman,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm Kevin Hibbard. I'm the director of the Wyoming State Budget Department, and I'm not saying anything contrary to Senator Guru. I'm supporting that. Basically, what you'll see is there's $16,419,558, of which $15,273,558 is 2025, and the $1,146,000 is 2026. It's just timing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Any other, Senator Larson?
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can ask Mr. Hibbard. So in the fiscal year 26, 27, there'll be dollars there of another 17 million or something?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hibbard?
Yes, the fact of the matter is over many years, we funded the trust fund for Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust, and the income on that fund predicated on our ability to earn on that is going to fund these projects in perpetuity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? If not, I'll open it up to any testimony. Anyone wish to address the committee on this bill? Anyone? Okay, here we go. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Holly Kennedy, and I'm here today representing the Wyoming Association of Conservation Districts. As you can imagine, we work quite closely with the Natural Resource Trust on a lot of these projects. And if you'll indulge me a little, I'll just run through our mission statement, which I think speaks to what a great fit for the work that we are. The Wyoming Association of Conservation Districts provides leadership for the conservation of Wyoming's soil and water resources, promotes the control of soil erosion, promotes and protects the quality of Wyoming's waters, reduces siltation of stream channels and reservoirs, and promotes wise use of Wyoming's water and all other natural resources, preserves and enhances wildlife habitat, protects the tax base, and promotes the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the state through a responsible conservation ethic. Much like the projects across the state, we have 34 conservation districts that are scattered across the state and reach from border to border. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think that's part of what is so great about the Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust, is that they target specific projects in specific areas to get specific outcomes. And so when you're looking at these dollars going on the ground, they really are very targeted. And beyond that, they're leveraged. They're leveraged both in bringing a lot of partners to the table with workforce expertise to get these projects on the ground and completed, as well as to leverage both federal dollars, private dollars, and then, of course, the Wyoming Natural Resource Trust Fund dollars to ensure that these projects get done in a timely manner and that they have the best impact as possible. Conservation districts are well-trained staff across the state that have specialized knowledge in many areas of work and are very passionate about getting good projects put on the ground. Where we're limited as conservation districts, however, is through our funding mechanisms. And the Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust is one of those great funding mechanisms that allows conservation districts to work with private landowners, among others, to get these projects implemented on the ground for the benefit of all. So we would stand in support of this bill today. We thank you for your support of these projects in the past and hopefully your continued support into the future. And with that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
Well, appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to? Good to see you, sir.
I'm Pete Gilloway. Served in the legislature for a few years, 14 to be exact.
Good to have you back here.
Thank you. I am representing the weed and pest districts, of which there are 23 in the state. And when you talk about cheatgrass, rangeland restoration, the weed and pest districts do a lot of that. They also are very adept in getting other folks together and putting their money in, whether it's BLM, whether it's the Forest Service, Game and Fish, and so forth. So this is a great project, and I'm sorry not to have Mr. Budd here to talk a little bit more about it, but this is a great project, and I certainly hope you'll vote for it. So.
Any questions? Senator Guru.
Just real quick, thanks Representative Illaway for being here, first of all. It's always a pleasure to see you. And the weed and pest districts work arm in arm with this fund. And so many of these projects at their heart are, whether it's Medusa head, cheatgrass, the various different, invasive species that are out there. Whether it's in the fire protection range or range management and all that, you're all working together really well. And so you consider this program a success?
Absolutely, I do. And there, Senator, there may be some folks on that would like to testify. I'm not sure whether they are or not, because at one time we'd heard this was not going to happen, and then you bring it forward, which is great. We need to move it forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone online, Linda? Okay. Any other discussion? Anyone else like to testify on this bill? Anyone? You can both come up if you'd like. Richard? Senator Hicks?
So, Mr. Chairman, I really hadn't come down here to testify on this bill. We have another one up here a little bit later, but just as I think many of you know, in my day jobs, I work for a local government entity that deals with natural resources with the conservation district. And so representing all those people in that part of Carbon County and Sweetwater County, I can tell you, we refer this locally as the local jobs bill. And as we participated, my employer is the Little Snake River Conservation District over the years has done a number of projects with these. And I can't emphasize the importance of what this has meant for our community, because when we had significant downturns in the oil and gas industry, through this program, because of the leverage, we were able to receive 15 to 20% of the grant money through the trust fund that we were leveraged through other programs. We have repeatedly been able to put those oil and gas contractors to work doing river work, constructing stock ponds, wetlands, and all the way down to fencing contractors. When we bury ditches, and improve conservation efficiency. Because, so remember, this is not just all about wildlife. It's about natural resources. And so we've done a tremendous amount of work to improve water quality with this program that's reduced treatment costs for the city of Baggs' water treatment because we've reduced sediment. But those contractors in this program has helped us build and diversify those local people that run those construction companies and those material men's and stuff reaches across the state of Wyoming. So when I look at this, it's been so important for our community to actually create jobs and generate an economy to support those industries. And I'll just use you an example. So we've done a number of water wells that we've drilled to provide both livestock and wildlife water availability. But when we do that, first thing we do is this. We typically hire a groundwater consultant. The firm that we use may be in Laramie or maybe in Sheridan. They review those groundwater programs, so part of that money goes back to look at those. We use a water well driller out of Lander. We source our drilling. He sources his drilling projects or products. So think the casing and the drilling mud and the sand and the screens, that comes out of a firm in Casper. So every time we do one of these projects, it reaches out and hires contractors and material men all across the state of Wyoming. So it generates economy, and because they leverage historically at 5 to 1, for every dollar we spent, we get $5 of private or other industry sector or NGO investments. It's been a very important program for our area of the state of Wyoming to keep a lot of people working. And so on and for the bill, I hope you guys can move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Richard Garrett. I'm representing the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, an organization which works with all people to protect the lands, waters, and wildlife of the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem now and for future generations. We are one of those NGOs that Senator Hicks referred to, although we're not specifically supporting any of the projects in this year's bill. We have many projects in years past, including projects in your neck of the woods, Chairman Salazar. It's something that our members are very proud of, and the leverage is something that the state can be proud of too. You've heard it referred to repeatedly. I'd only add one additional note to that. Many of these projects this year deal with invasive species, including cheatgrass. A company has discovered a new treatment that effectively treats cheatgrass and has generously committed to contributing 3 to 4%. I'm not precisely sure of the amount that Mr. Budd referred to the other day, 3 to 4% of their sales in the state of Wyoming to the effort to control cheatgrass. That's an incredibly important effort that the legislature has supported for many years and needs to continue to support. We have states to the west of us that are burning up as a result of invasive cheatgrass, and we're close to controlling it, but we are never sure that we're going to be able to do so for the long term. So your support for 20 years now, the trust is about to celebrate its 20th anniversary, by the way. Your support for 20 years has been incredibly important to this effort. So I thank you and stand for any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions? Thank you again. Senator Larson? Okay. Any other testimony? Any other testimony? Okay, I'll close public testimony. Committee?
Move the bill.
Move the bill. Second. Any discussion?
Question.
Question. Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote for Senate File 0088. Senator Driscoll and Senator Driscoll has registered an aye vote. Senator Guru?
Aye.
Senator Larson?
Aye.
Senator Smith has registered an aye vote. And Chairman Salzar?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes do pass.
Great. Next, we have Senate File 91, Pictograph and Historic Inscription Protection. Senator Case, Chairman Case, please. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a couple of agency folks here.
Okay.
You
wanna bring them up,
Our Wyoming State archaeologist, and
Okay.
Sarah Sheen, director of our SHPO office. Maybe they'd like to join. And
Yes, come on up.
Then I can duck some of these hard questions, sir.
Good to have you here.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This bill is a product of the Select Committee on Tribal Relations. That's a 6-member committee, 3 House members and 3 senators. It was chaired by Affy Ellis, who's no longer with the legislature. Senator Barlow and myself were the members, and of course, there's House members too, but we don't care about them right now. But anyway, we found this to be really a compelling topic. And I don't know, we're not the first feet to walk in this space, and our legacy of indigenous people, potentially, they push back the boundaries of some of the notions of how long people have been in North America, and used to be kind of the Clovis era. It's gone way back before then. Just by way of some of the connections, probably the people residing here today, the Arapaho people, probably came from the upper Midwest and came out here. The Shoshone people are related to the Comanche in Texas, believe it or not. I mean, and the Shoshone language is Aztecian. It's of that language group. We have no idea. And that's sort of the recent part. There's no real information except for by images that have been left behind in archaeological sites about people, very ancient peoples. And Wyoming is full of representations from those ancient people. And we're only just beginning to understand them, even in a small amount. And I got involved in this because of some work at Sinks Canyon, which I think was the more and more we find, I think it was a really important pathway to the upper mountains. And we found out that Native people lived in the upper mountains all year round and survived up there. It's incredible. There's been really amazing stuff found at Dinwiddie. But if you go to places like Castle Gardens, which I'm not sure if it's in my district or your district. I think it might be in your district, sir. Just incredible shield art. What's happening is these depictions are disappearing. Some of them are vandalized, and it used to be a lot more common, I think, to vandalize them. But that's what the first part of the bill does, is provide for protection of those on state property. Doesn't affect private ground, doesn't reach to there. But the second part of the bill, which is the subject of the appropriation, is an appropriation of $441,000 from the general fund from the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources for the purpose of surveying, documenting, 3-dimensionally modeling internally or through a consultant, all known petroglyphs and pictographs on state, school, institutional land in Wyoming. Not private land, but we have things that we don't even know exist. But they're disappearing, either unfortunately through vandalism or weathering actually takes its toll too. And we got interested in this project. There's some amazing things happening with enhanced imaging, a 3-dimensional imaging where literally you can have something that looks like that wall over there. And with the proper imaging, the proper lighting, different wavelengths, maybe looking even using radar to find the differences in texture, all of a sudden you see a book. It's phenomenal. And it's really incredible. And some of it uses artificial intelligence to put together little pieces of information and come up with the story. We think it's important to do this because it's important to protect these images. We're not trying to make them into tourist attractions, but there is a tourist connection Tourism and our indigenous Native American heritage is a very important draw. People can come here and see the same landscapes before they put all the damn wind turbines on them that Native American people saw after the Ice Age. I mean, that's an incredible thing. They can't do that anywhere else in the lower 48. So to be able to document this, not reveal it. We're not looking to put a directory of where these sites are, go to, but we're to document them so that we always have the images and perhaps can learn from those images. Maybe people can in 100 years. They go, thank God they made those images and made that record. So, and now we can interpret this in a different way. And I'm not the archaeologist, but I think if you heard from Mr. Pelton about his craft, we're truly fortunate to have him and Ms. Sheen as our SHPO officer. They can tell you a little bit more about the magnitude of this thing, which we need to do now before we lose them. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and let me just say this. I read my first book on this subject last year, and I was shocked how important this is. This really is important. I also want to thank you, Senator Case, for your work on tribal relations. I know you've been so dedicated in that regard and bringing this forward, and I find this to be very important. So, yes, please identify yourself.
Thank you. I'm Spencer Pelton, the state archaeologist for Wyoming. I'll echo some of the things that Senator Case said. These are non-renewable resources, I guess is the best way to put it. Once they're gone forever. And we're losing them pretty actively through vandalism and erosion. We've documented sites within the last couple of years where there's dates scrawled right on top of ancient petroglyph panels that date to 2022, 2023. This is an ongoing issue. I don't think there's a lot of people in Wyoming doing this, but it only takes a couple, right, to really make these go away. I will add that, this doesn't just pertain to the Native American rock art in the state. There's also a lot of really valuable historic inscriptions that date to the expansion period, the Oregon Trail period, where people living today can see the inscriptions of their ancestors along the Oregon Trail in this state. And it provides a really interesting connection for those folks as well. As far as the appropriation goes, this does basically two things. The really baseline thing is just documenting these things before it's too late. Getting good photos of them, getting a good condition assessment of them, how much vandalism is there, which ones are eroding, which ones aren't. And then from there, we can actually prioritize certain sites for maybe enhanced protections. If there's a site that's being actively vandalized on an annual basis, we'll know that after this documentation phase. But what came out of the committee hearings was this real desire to have this three-dimensional modeling component to it, which is really a huge value-added product on top of this. This process is basically taking hundreds of photos of these panels, dumping those photos into a software package that stitches them together and creates a three-dimensional model of the actual rock face. So if you can imagine, if you've ever interfaced with something where you can kind of, pinch a screen and it zooms into something and you can rotate it around, you can actually interface with these things in really interesting ways with the use of the software. That allows people that don't have access to these sites or can't access these sites for mobility reasons. It allows these people to actually interface with this resource in a really interesting way and provides a real tangible benefit to the people of Wyoming in educational settings or folks from out of state that had ancestors that crossed the immigrant trails and want to see if their ancestors' inscriptions are on some of these panels. So all in all, I think it would accomplish the goals of the committee, what they set out to accomplish.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sarah Sheen, I'm the Deputy Director of State Parks and Cultural Resources, and I don't think I have anything to add unless there are questions that I can answer.
Okay. Questions? Yes, Senator Guru.
I do have a question for Ms. Needles here. As this moves forward, do you see any path where other dollars might be available, that there might be some grant opportunities, that there might be other monies available to help enhance whatever we can do with this project?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Grew, I think that that's always an option. I think that once you get the first step done of having these recorded, you do open up possibilities for letting the larger world see some of these things electronically. If not, it takes a lot for us to kind of promote people going and visiting these sites, right? A lot of protections need to be in place for that. But to get this out to the world at large, I think there are certainly lots of grant opportunities moving forward.
A quick question. Is there not petroglyphs in Du Bois? Yes, okay, that's what I thought. Incredible ones. Yeah.
They're literally all over.
Yeah, no, this is our history, and it would be a shame to lose that history. So, any other questions? Oh, yes, Chairman Case.
I mentioned I represent, and so do you, the Shoshone and Arapaho people, but they're not the only tribes that interfaced in Wyoming. And it is quite a large list. When we have to do consultations, I mean, we connect with a whole bunch of tribes that have cultural connections to Wyoming. Two major treaties were signed here, the Fort Laramie and the Fort Bridger, involving lots and lots. And, just a small list would be like the Bannocks, the Arakiers, the Blackfeet, Grovant, Kiowa, Nez Sheep Eaters, the Sioux, the Ute, it goes on. And so this culture is vast. The idea about our more recent culture, which is recent but so significant when you think that the largest proportional migration in United States history was the travelers across our high deserts to go to Oregon and to Utah, proportionally the biggest migrations. And they left inscriptions. And you'll be amazed when someone writes on top of inscription from the 1840s and says class of 72 or something, it is a great disappointment. And we need to document that as well. We're just the caretakers of what we have now. All of them came before, and we need to pass it on.
Great points, Senator Case. Any other questions? Thank you so much, appreciate it. Anyone else wish to testify? If not, I will close public testimony committee.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Nope. Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote for Senate File 0091. Senator Driscoll is registered an aye vote. Senator Carew.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
Senator Smith has registered an aye vote. Chairman Salazar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes do
Great,
pass.
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to these guys.
Yes, absolutely, thank you. The last bill is Senate File 168, Budget Reserve Account Repeal. Who is Senator Hicks? I'll tell you, Senator Hicks, we're starting a...
I've got one for them too.
Okay. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just before we start, this one is not a re-referral. This is a straight bill that's been appropriated and sent our way. So we get to hold the bonds up.
Okay.
So make sure that.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. You are the committee of origin. No re-referral. This doesn't directly deal with any appropriations, but what the bill does is what it does do is simplify our budget and moves from having multiple checking accounts in our current statutory scheme starts to move us in the directions to, well, I'd say simplify and adds more transparency into the budgeting process, Mr. Chairman. And so really what the bill does is, as you can get to it, it repeals the budget reserve account. This is in your fiscal data book that just describes what the account is. This account was originally created as a rainy day account. But this predates the LSRA, the Legislative Stabilization Reserve Account. In recent history, the BRA currently serves as a secondary checking account against the general fund draws and general fund appropriations. Those appropriations come from severance taxes and federal mineral royalties above the cap, which is anything over $155 million. All the bill does is repeal this. It takes those severance taxes and those federal mineral royalties and runs into the general fund. And so rather than having two checking accounts there, we have one. It's just a budget simplification bill, Mr. Chairman, and I'd stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Any questions? Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I just want to make sure, and as everybody can see, I'm a co-sponsor on this, so you probably guess where I'm at on this, but I just wanted to make sure, and as I look through this, there's an awful lot in those green books, and there's awful lot in those green books that probably relate to the BRA account. And so do we have a general catch-all in here? Someone I see around the post there to Mr. Hibbert too, but just to make sure that there aren't any unintended consequences, that basically, we all know that this account, I think it's high time it go away, but just make sure that there's nothing in the green books that we trip ourselves up on.
So, Mr. Chairman, and to that point, because it's referenced through the green books in a number of places, so let's just flip over to the first page. And so go to page 2, and you get down there, this deals with interloan borrowing, and it just says other than to the general fund or the budget reserve account. In other words, this money's now going to flow to the general fund because we're repealing the budget reserve account. And so the reason that you see this lengthy bill is because you see that language in a number of categories where we say you can spend out of the budget reserve account. This all moves to the general fund. Any expenditure that we currently make out of the budget reserve account, we can make out of the general fund. And so I hope that answers the question. That's why you see the language and the length here, is because it is referenced. And keep in mind, the budget reserve account was the original rainy day account, but we've moved past that, and we never questions why we still need this. So that's why the length of the bill is to go in there and clarify that. I hope that answers the question, Mr. Chairman.
It does, Mr. Chairman, and thank you.
Senator Hicks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
Is there anyone else who'd like to testify on this bill? Anyone? Closed testimony?
Mr. Chairman, roll call vote for Senate File 0168. Senator Driscoll is registered an aye vote. Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Larson.
Aye.
Senator Smith is registered an aye vote. Chairman Salzar.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 5 ayes do pass.
Great. I think that concludes our business for today. I will adjourn this meeting.